Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the fascinating clinical world of Faradic Current. If you've ever wondered exactly how we manage to wake up weak or completely paralyzed muscles, well, you're in the right place. We're going to break down the science, the setup, and the specific application techniques we use in electrotherapy to restore human movement.
All right, let's quickly run through our roadmap for today. We'll be hitting 1. The physics of comfort. 2. Therapeutic uses. 3. The clinical performa. 4. Essential equipment. And finally, methods of application.
So before we even think about touching any equipment, or even seeing our patient really, we have to ask an absolutely crucial question about the patient's experience. You see, Faradic current involves stimulating nerves to force a muscle contraction. And honestly, that can feel pretty intense. So how do we make it comfortable? Well, it all comes down to pulse width modulation, which is just how long the current is actually flowing, and duty cycles. Manipulating those factors completely changes how the electricity feels on the skin.
The math behind this comfort is actually super cool. If you take the formula where average voltage equals your peak voltage multiplied by your duty cycle, you can instantly see how tweaking that cycle changes the voltage. Say you have a peak voltage of 5 volts, right? But you only deliver it 80% of the time. That 80% is your duty cycle, which immediately drops your average voltage to a much more tolerable 4 volts. By managing these cycles, we maximize patient comfort, but still pack enough punch to trigger that muscle contraction.
Okay, moving on to part 2, power and therapeutic uses. Why do we actually use Faradic current?
Well, its versatility goes way beyond just randomly making a muscle twitch. We use it highly strategically when a patient just can't produce a voluntary contraction on their own. It literally re-educates muscle action, kind of like training a brand new movement, and it's a huge help in recovering from neuropraxia, which is a temporary nerve block. Beyond that, it works as a diagnostic tool for severed nerves. It boosts venous and lymphatic drainage, and it can even inhibit antagonistic muscles by forcing them to relax. It really is a powerhouse tool for physical rehab.
Let's shift gears to the clinical process, patient and apparatus preparation.
This general pro forma right here, this is your non-negotiable checklist. It's how you properly receive the patient. You introduce yourself, double-check their identity against their case sheet, and ask about their chief complaint. But most importantly, this is the exact moment you rigorously hunt for any general or local contraindications. Do not even think about turning on that stimulator until safety and verification are totally locked down.
Up next, essential clinical equipment, prepping the trays.
To keep things safe and flowing smoothly, we always divide our gear into 2 distinct trays. First is the skin resistance lowering tray, which preps our biological canvas, the patient's skin. The second is the treatment tray, holding all the heavy hardware we need to deliver the actual electrical current. Keeping these separate is just the gold standard for a hygienic, professional workflow.
Zooming in on that skin resistance lowering tray, we're talking saline or tap water, cotton pads, and absolutely, you need soap to wash down the treatment area. You might even have to shave some hair to guarantee perfect contact. Oh, and you must have petroleum jelly on standby. Why? Because if there's even a tiny scratch or broken skin, you have to cover it with jelly and a cotton pad. Otherwise, the current will concentrate right in that cut and cause a really nasty, painful shock.
Now, over on our treatment tray, we've got the core delivery tools. We need a Macintosh sheet to protect the bed, our leads, our straps, plenty of conductive electrotherapy gel, and of course, our specific active electrodes. Those could be a pad, a specialized pen, or a classic metal plate.
Speaking of plate electrodes, if you're using them, listen up, because these rules are vital. Your active electrode has to be meticulously wrapped. The standard specifically demands covering it with at least 8 folds of moist lint. And those folds, they have to be completely even, 0 creases, completely moistened with absolutely no dry spots. Plus, the lint has to extend past the plate by at least 1 centimeter on every single side. I know it sounds super specific, but this level of precision is exactly what guarantees a safe, totally even distribution of the current.
All right, let's jump into preparing the patient.
Before you hook anything up, your communication needs to be crystal clear. You have to tell the patient exactly what it's going to feel like. Use the phrase mild prickling. Setting that expectation right up front completely manages their startle reflex and takes away the anxiety of being suddenly zapped by a machine.
As you're exposing the area and doing your final skin wash, there's a massive physiological factor you just can't ignore. The patient has to be warm. It's non-negotiable. If they are shivering or if the local tissue is cold, those muscles simply will not respond well to the stimulation. Period.
This is also the stage where you pick your indifferent electrode. And remember, it needs to be much larger than your active treatment electrode. Finally, Section 5, Methods of Application. Unipolar versus bipolar.
The absolute biggest difference you need to master here is between unipolar and bipolar applications. Unipolar uses a small, active electrode targeted with laser precision directly on a motor point, while a larger, indifferent electrode sits somewhere else just to complete the circuit. Bipolar is different. It uses two electrodes of the exact same size, placed strategically along the length of the targeted muscle belly.
Think about the monopolar or unipolar method like this. The current is passing specifically between that highly localized, small active electrode sitting right over the motor point and the much larger reference electrode resting gently opposite to it. You are literally concentrating the energy right where the nerve meets the muscle.
Taking this into the real world, you might use a specialized pen electrode to hunt down that exact motor point on, say, the thigh, giving you pinpoint accuracy. Compare that to a standard bipolar setup on the lower leg, where you're using two equally sized pads to stimulate a much broader section of the muscle.
And you know what? We can scale this up even further. For larger treatments, we use what's called group stimulation. By slapping large, equal-sized bipolar pads across both legs, like targeting the quadriceps, we can recruit massive muscle groups all at the exact same time for a huge, broad therapeutic effect.
Well, we have definitely covered a lot of ground today. From the underlying physics of duty cycles, all the way down to ensuring you have exactly 8 folds of lint on your active electrode. As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to consider this. How will these meticulous setup steps and highly targeted applications transform your next physical rehabilitation session? Because when you respect the pro forma and master the technique, electricity truly becomes a profound tool for healing. Thanks for joining me on this clinical journey.